Hello and welcome back, Drum Nerd family. Hopefully everybody's staying well out there. And who's as excited as I am about this video? As the title says, bass drum portholes. Are they needed? Are they not? I think I'm going to hold this frame right here for a few seconds just so that I can maybe get a decent JPEG to use for the thumbnail. I hope that's long enough. There we go. So I'll see how that works out. If you're enjoying everything so far, then definitely hit like. Let me know what's going on in the comment section. Are you a porthole advocate or are you a non-porthole advocate? Yeah, let's have a conversation. Nobody's right or wrong. The only thing that's really bad about this entire topic, the thing that really grinds my gears on this, is when people say you have to do it. The amount of times I could tell you I've had bass players, sound engineers, not drummers. That's the bit that's messed up. Is bass players, sound engineers saying you have to have a porthole. You need to have a porthole. Why don't you have a porthole, Colin? Get a porthole. Everybody else has a porthole. Get a porthole. They don't know why they're telling you to get a porthole. So for that, let's clear some of the noise. Let's try and make some decent discussion about portholes, and then the necessary reasons for them and the reasons not for them. Now, in case you're this far in and you're going, I got no idea what you're talking about. What the hell is a porthole? Porthole, similar to what you would find on ships, submarines, maybe not submarines. Let's open the porthole on the submarine. Kadoof! You've wiped out the whole crew. No, no portholes mostly on ships. They're just, as it sounds, circular hole. I would assume, I don't know, I'm just speaking off of a whim here, but it might have something to do with the port and starboard side. If somebody is keen to get down the rabbit hole of where portholes originated, feel free to do so and educate me and the rest of the drum nerd community. But yeah, so it's a tiny hole. So portholes are tiny little. They range between 4 to 7 inches, if I'm not mistaken. They'll go between 4 and 7 inches circumference. On the front, the reso head, reso being resonant head of the bass drum, and that's usually, they will usually put that off center on the lower side of the bass drum. Now we'll get into all of this as we discuss portholes, but there's a reason for that positioning as well, sonically. But again, the toxic part, and I hope that this video does something at least to educate you being the viewer on what a porthole is, and if you then will want to endorse it or not, and how you can porthole responsibly. Now, the problem with everybody saying get this, get this, get this, you have to do it, I'd like to think that there aren't any drummers that go to bass players and say, you have to put a sponge under your fretboard or under your pickup in that little bit there, because lots of funk players did it back in the 60s and whatnot, and you have to do it. You have to put a sponge under those strings. You have to do it because everybody else is doing it. I hope drummers, I hope we are not giving out that bad name and reputation of being people that are more like sheep than anything else. And so hopefully we don't do what seems to get done to us a lot. And if you've had any of these altercations and incidences, let me know. Let's have a discussion about it, because it seems like it's quite often coming this way to the drum community. But so, what are you going to benefit from portholing your bass drum? You'll get, really the bullet points here. If you porthole your bass drum, depending on 4 inches or 7 inches, but the end game, the end result of a portholed bass drum, you'll get less rebound on your beater head, or on your beater rather. You'll have a bit brighter of a sound. It'll be a bit, it's hard to describe musical sounds, but it'll be a bit more bright, a bit more attacky. You'll kill some of that low end, and it will also project a bit farther. So those are the three main kind of sonic points. The fourth point being you'll have accessibility for the microphone to go a bit deeper into the bass drum for the sound guide. But again, let's break all these points down. So strap in, this is going to get intense. Personally, before we go any farther, I am not a fan or an advocate of portholes. I don't like them. You don't porthole your toms, and so off of that that point in itself. I know some people are gonna have a go at me now and say, Colin, of course you don't porthole toms. I bet you would if it became fashionable, though. That's the thing. We've all got. Well, I don't, but all those fat low end snare drums on the side. I mean, that's a fad. Or those trash stacks. I'm getting a bit a bit off topic here, but there is something to be said about fashions and trends in drums, and I'm not a fan of those because once everybody starts doing it, where's the identifiability? Where you've lost your uniqueness. So I'm not a trend follower. I don't really like that stuff. But no, I don't like porthole in my bass drum. I don't agree with it because I want a low end bass drum sound. I don't want it to be raised in sonic in pitch. The projection that you get would be so negligible when you think you're doing gigs in all these venues, these small venues. You whack and lay into a bass drum, you're going to project across the room. That's kind of a given. And at the point at which you think, well, let's add more projection because these are bigger venues, the chances are you'll probably be working with sound engineers that are accommodating to that venue. So, I mean, the gap gets filled by the time you get into Wembley Arena or Stadium. The sound guys there, they're throwing sound across the back of the room. They're not going to not be able to hit those back rows if you don't have a porthole. Let's really be honest with ourselves here. That porthole projection bonus that you get is not going to get you to reach those extra, XYZ row of that arena or stadium. And when you're in a tinier venue, let's say like 100 capacity, 200 capacity, you're still not going to be able to, you're not going to fall short of protecting your bass drum if you don't have a porthole. So that to me is a bit of a non-starter. This is all opinion based, but that's my logical approach to that. And I don't want less rebound on my pedal because so again, the rebound that you get off of a bass drum comes in the sense of you, as you would in anything. I mean, take a balloon for example. If you push against this is a silly example because if you put a hole in a balloon, you lose the whole balloon. But what I'm trying to get at is there's all air in there, and when you move, you push in between your hands with the balloon right here. You push this hand over here, it pushes against that, and it'll push back. You're manipulating air. You're moving air in a confined space, right? And so that rebound that you get off of the bass drum is just the air coming back that you've sent away. It's coming back to that head, and it's helping you get that beater off the head there. As soon as you cut a hole in that, you push, the air goes out, it funnels out through that hole. And it ain't coming back. I mean, some of it will come back because you're not gonna exhaust all the air in the bass drum. You're looking at like a 22 by 18, 22 by 16. Even if you're looking at a tinier bass drum, like an 18 by 14, whatever you want to configure it as, is if it looks like a tiny, almost like a larger floor tom, you're not still gonna get rid of all the air in that bass drum. I'd be surprised if you did. You can never exhaust all the air in your lungs. I wouldn't imagine one kick would fully vaporize all the air in that drum. So you'll still get some back, but you are letting out the majority of it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's upwards of like 80% of that air is gone. And so you lose that rebound. You lose that interaction with the air that you're moving, right? And so those sonic points to me don't make me too keen on a porthole. I'm not a fan of a high-pitched bass drum, and getting a porthole is going to help raise the pitch. It's going to be more attacky, and again, if you want more attack, and you're in a small venue, if you want more attack, mic the batter head. You can mic the batter head, so you're aiming at where your beater is impacting on that head, and then you're still going to get that projection. You'll get a bit more of the attack because you're hitting it right at the point. And you'll still get the low end because you're in a tiny room. And again, if there's a problem and you're in a bigger venue, they can manipulate that sound easily. They can put a front end, they can put a reso mic, they can put in a beater mic, so they can capture everything. I don't think a porthole in itself is valid enough to go and start messing around with things. That again, I'm going off on tangents here, and I do apologize, but these are my beliefs. I just want to give the most information. So really, when you put the porthole in, you're going to have a higher pitch sounding bass drum, and it'll be a bit more attacky, but you'll get a bit more projection. Again, my counter argument to that is I want a low sounding bass drum. I don't want a high frequency bass drum. I want some rebound from that, so I don't want to lose my rebound and that beater coming off the head. I don't want it to be like laying into a pillow, and I don't really need the projection. I mean, the projection might be, and again, this is where you want to start looking at how are we going to define this, because if you want to learn how to project your bass drum, get a bit more technique into your foot, into your right foot, left foot, whichever side player you are. But if you're looking at saying, well, what if I'm doing a jazz gig? Typically and stereotypically for jazz, the bass drum is to be feathered and felt, not it's felt not heard. So you don't want to project. You don't want to project that. You're not going to be looking for that. So again, we're looking at things that there is always a counter to the porthole need, and I will go off on a video about my rants for the sound engineers, but it is disgusting how they can come up to you when you're about to go on and say, you have to play this way, you have to play that way, you have to do that. Can you take off your front head so I can get a mic in there? Come on, people, really. Like, you would think that you would be able to figure out how to mic a drum sans porthole and not have to make the drummer accommodate his sound and feel so that you can get your mic a few inches farther into the bass drum. Does that not say that you're not the greatest of sound engineers? Let's be honest here. And you don't want to throw people off their game when they're about to go on and do a show and they tell you, you got to play this loud or you got to play that much quieter and don't do this with that. Like, have any drummers, and let me know, be honest, have any drummers, have any of you, or non-drummers, have any of you gone up to a sound man in his little sound booth on the other end of the room and said, maybe do all of this, don't do that, whack the gain up, maybe dial down a bit of the bass, and do this and do this and do this and do this. It doesn't happen. You don't tell them what to do, and I know that they're in charge of the room, and I'm going off on a tangent. I'll leave this rant for a sound engineer's rant video, but porthole, I don't really believe in it. Now, to practice safe portholing, again, not an advocate, but if you're going to do it, please have respect enough for the drum and the head, and don't just get a razor blade and start hacking at that, because you're going to fray the edges, it'll tear, it won't be nice, it won't look good, it won't work. I'm sorry, but it just won't. So if you're going to be wanting to do this, the best way I've found on the internet and through experience is you just take a bean can. Take a bean can. Again, do this with supervision if you're not old enough. Please don't be taking things into your own hands and doing something dangerous if you're not old enough to be working with a stove. So do have a parent help you if you're not of age in that sense, or you feel like you need a bit of guidance. But take a bean can, get rid of the label, and obviously empty out the contents. So maybe have beanies and weenies, or have beans on toast, or have a bean dish, eat it, don't waste the beans, and take the empty bit of the can, take the opening of the can, and just put it on the hob, put it on your stove top for no more than about a minute. And obviously you want to have taken your reso head off the bass drum, and you want to have it on a surface that is not going to catch fire or burn. Maybe lay down like a fairly thick wooden chopping block. Or do this outside. Do this outside on the grass or pavement. But put that down there. And where you want to put it is the lower half, left or right center. And you take that heated can and you just put it on there. Don't move it. Just rest it on there. Let it heat through. And what that will do is just perfectly burn a circle through. And then you can pull it out. There are plenty of videos on YouTube for that. Now, why you want to put it in the lower half of either right or left off center is because if you put it straight where the center is, you're going to be releasing even more air. You're going to be starting to really mess with things there. And if you put a mic in that, the air passing through that is going to be massively detrimental to the sound and how it picks it up as a microphone. So off center and a bit below. Off center to the left or right and a bit below on the lower half of that head is going to kind of help get the best sound from that. But again, that's entirely your choice if you want a porthole. I will do a video on tunneling because that is the only time that I will condone the absolute removal of the resonant head in the studio. And out of the various sessions that I've done in the studio, there has only been one time that it's been done. It was a suggestion by my very good buddy Graham, I've done a video on, and he turned me onto this thing, and I've asked him to do it on every other recording because it sounds incredible, but it has a place, and he's refused all but one. And I'll go into a video about that, but that is the only time that I'll accept removing a resonant head on a bass drum. But yes, to summarize, if you've lasted this long in this entirely ranty, nerdy porthole session, porthole, it will make a brighter, kind of higher pitch bass drum sound. You will get more attack, so you'll hear more of an attack on it instead of that roundness. You will project a bit further, and it will be a bit more accessible for mics on the engineering side. The reasons I don't agree with it, other than the fact that you don't porthole your toms, and you don't porthole your floor tom, and again, just maybe something to keep in mind, I don't want a higher pitch and a brighter attack on my bass drum. If I want more attack, I can put maybe a flam slam on the beater head, or I could mic the beater head, the batter head, sorry, in itself. So I don't want a higher pitch, brighter sounding bass drum. If I want more attack, I can put the mic on that or add a flam slam to it. And the projection is a kind of an unnecessary thing, because if you're in a small club and venue, it's going to project. If you're in a giant stadium, they're going to have enough sound engineering quality and capability and gear to project all that out anyways. So to me, it's a bit of an irrelevance, and I don't like the look of it aesthetically on top of all that with a vanity thing. I don't want a hole in my bass drum. And so there you go. If you've lasted this long, oh, I just hit puberty as well. Finally, I'm going to phone people, tell them I hit puberty at 29. So, there you go. If you've lasted this long, it's a big old rant about portholes. I don't personally agree with them. If you do, let me know. Put it down in the comments section below. Let's have a discussion and see what's going on. And if you've enjoyed this, hit subscribe. Hang around for the next video, hopefully not as long as this, about the infamous tunnel that I mentioned a few minutes ago. So, thanks very much, and I'll see you in a bit.